All right, mi gente. So we are here. One of the beauties of having the new studio is that now we get to re-invite guests that we've had before, and now we've got video.
Yeah.
So I am so happy to have back with us, straight from WPLG, Louis Aguirre. Thank you so much for joining us again, man.
Great to see you. It's been a minute. We were just talking about that. Yeah.
5 years.
It's the beginning of the pandemic.
That's insane.
We were at Miracle on the Mile before the world shut down.
Just grabbed you right
It's the
before
last
it all.
party before it shut down.
Well, and what a person to party with.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was really fun.
That was awesome.
Thanks for having me back.
No, thank you. I mean, I will say this, when you came on the last time, I think you were one of the first journalists we had. And I think you probably gave us a little credibility in that sense. So thank you for that. Since
pleasure.
then we've had we had Gio Benitez on, we've had Tom Llamas, we've had, you may know Belkys Neray.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. We'll refresh your memory later.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I think a part of that, honestly, is because you came on and kind of made us credible in that sense of like, yeah.
So I was the gateway drug?
I wasn't going to call you that to your face, but I have been saying it in emails. So yeah, there was that.
Right. Or the guinea pig, whatever you want to use.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know which is worse, to call a guinea pig or a gateway drug.
And maybe a combination of both. I don't know.
Okay, so you're a gateway guinea pig.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
That works. I've been called worse, as a matter of fact. So yeah,
I'm sure we can compare notes.
Okay.
On that one. But no, thank you for coming back. And I wanted to have you back on, number one, because I wanted to have you back on, and it's my show, and I can. But also, we've got Earth Day coming up, and so I was like, I always kind of want to put a spotlight on that a little bit more than I think we do, especially nowadays with just so much going on in terms of like, the microplastics and the fluoride and there's just so much happening. And I was like, in lieu of like digging up Jacques Cousteau, I think I can just get Louis Aguirre to come by.
Wow, that's a compliment. That made up for the gateway and the guinea pig. Thank you.
It's what we do here. We set you up to knock you down, and then we build you up again.
You build me back up.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate the love.
Yeah, but you've with PLG, you've been doing "Don't Trash Our Treasure."
Yeah,
which it's Emmy award winning.
Yeah,
we were just talking about that. How long has that been going on now?
Since 2021, Earth Day 2021 when we launched. Yeah.
Okay, it's
4 years. Yeah,
it's a testament to you that I feel like it's been going on longer, and I mean that in a good way.
I hope so,
because I feel like you've really stepped it in. And
well, the funny thing is this was supposed to be an experiment. I came in to WPLG when they asked me to come back with the caveat that I'll take this job if you let me champion environmental stories, because no one in town was doing it with regularity, right? So I think they were very excited that I was willing to leave Los Angeles and come back to Miami. And they said, sure, whatever you want. I don't think they had any idea of the fuse they had just lit, And at first, it was just a drip of stories here and there. And then when the fish kill happened in the summer of 2020, and we were, faced with the possibility that our bay was dying, and that if we didn't act quickly and with urgency, we were going to lose the big blue heart of Miami. That's really a $64 billion economic engine. So I don't care if you're a fish hugger or not. If you live in Miami and you love the lifestyle that it brings you, you care about the health of Biscayne Bay. And I think it freaked a lot of people out. And we were the only station that was on the ground reporting from the heart of that fish kill for 2 weeks.
I was going to say, it felt like every day you guys were reporting on it. Yeah.
It was just every day. So. It was like a sea of dead fish that was, washing up on the shores of Biscayne Bay on, multi-million-dollar mansions that people were like, wow, this is happening in my backyard. And then the algae bloom that happened afterwards, people were freaked out. And because I had done the research and the homework, I knew what was happening. And so for the first time, this conversation was amplified, and it engaged us all to care and to pay attention. And my bosses said, well, you need to really explain this and break this down. And they assigned me the task of putting together a half-hour special in a week's time, which, thank goodness, I had a wonderful team.
A week?
A week. Natalie Verona, who was my executive producer, who's now news director in San Antonio, Texas, was instrumental. My chief photographer, Bill Damas, and my editor, and we all worked very hard, tirelessly, and put the special on the air. And we were surprised. It was a primetime special. It aired Wednesday at 8 p.m., and we won the night. I mean, I don't know what was running. It wasn't Friends or Seinfeld running on NBC anymore. In these days of digital television, that's pretty impressive. But it was an 8 p.m. primetime slot, and people watched. And we realized that we couldn't stop. And my bosses said, to their credit, not my idea, we want you to keep going. And this is going to be an experiment, so don't freak out. We're going to give you a year's time. And if you don't have enough stories to feed the beast, we'll figure this out. But try it for a year and see if you're able to keep up. Or, if this is something that we do once every other week, or we just do a special every month. And there are no shortage of environmental stories, sadly, happening in our backyard. And so it wasn't a question of, do we have enough material? Do we have enough content? But it's more like playing whack-a-mole. There's not enough of me to cover the plethora of environmental stories that are happening here in South Florida on any given day.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I mean, obviously you are like the figurehead of Don't Trash Our Treasure. I would say, obviously you still do the coverage, but I feel like it's expanded beyond just you, right? Like, I mean, it feels like it's a PLG cause.
It's become a public service announcement. So we have my PSAs, which run ad nauseum. I apologize. It's not my call, by the way. So we have those that run all the time just to remind people about what's happening. And then the actual segment runs on Wednesdays at 5:30 is the premiere episode, for lack of a better word. And then it reruns at 11 o'clock, and then it runs again on the weekend shows. So we get a lot of airtime, and then it's amplified on social media. Obviously, it goes to local10.com, and then on Sunday, after it's had its last run on the morning shows, then I blast it on my social. So that's why it seems like it's everywhere. Okay. I'm like a virus; you can't get rid of me.
Well, listen, and in all fairness, I don't want the vaccine.
Thank you.
Because you're doing,
there is no vaccine.
That's another conversation for another day.
Yeah,
but no, I mean, you're really doing, the Lord's work, as they say, right? And I think it's a testament to your passion that, like I said, it's one thing to come into a new environment and be like, hey, let's do this experiment, let's do this test. And they kind of like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But you seem to have actually turned it into their like platform. And that's not an easy thing to do. You know what I mean? For anybody to come in and make something that is a well-oiled machine, kind of add a new cog to the machine, as it were, is not an easy thing to do. And you've done it in just like 4 years.
I'll tell you why.
Because again, I feel like, that's why I asked you when you said it was only 4 years. I was like, this feels like it's just been embedded in PLG longer because of the way you've approached it.
I think it's been embedded into my consciousness from the time I was born. I remember as a kid, we were just talking about Jacques Cousteau and bringing him back. Jacques Cousteau was one of the first heroes in my life. As a kid, I couldn't wait for the undersea adventures of Jacques Cousteau. I forgot what it was called, something like that. And
that sounds right.
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. I mean, that was appointment television for me back when there were only 4 channels on television. I'm old that way.
Which is weird because you're 27.
You actually get your ass off the sofa and change the dial to change the channel. I remember that.
Were you the youngest sibling?
I was the oldest.
The oldest. Okay, so you were not the remote control. Okay.
I was the human remote control, but I was the one that obviously took command of TV every Sunday night at 7 p.m. and on Saturdays, whatever time Jacques Cousteau ran. But that was appointment television for me, and I was just fascinated with the wonders of our natural world, both under the sea and on land. And I knew that I wanted to go on safari, and I knew that I wanted to scuba dive, and I didn't know how all it was going to play out in my life. You can never connect the dots looking forward. It's only backwards that you can understand why each of these moments led to who you are right now in this present moment. So, but those were my biggest teachers, and it was formative for me. I learned a lot, and it wasn't until I was in Los Angeles. Well, that was the promised land. When I left Echo, we were just talking about Belkys. Is that right? Belkys?
Belkys?
No, I think it's Belkys. I think it's Belkys. I'm gonna fact check that.
Okay, let me know.
But I think it's Belkys. But I love her. She's my sister. All those people at Channel 7. I know I'm here representing PLG, but Channel 7 was my first family here in South Florida, and it will always be family. So I love nothing but love for them. But when I left Echo to go to LA, that was the promised land. What I wanted to do is I wanted to be the junior Anthony Bourdain. I wanted to travel the world. I didn't know why I wanted to travel the world. I just knew that I wanted to travel the world and tell important stories, talk about culture, talk about food, talk about great places to stay and experience, kind of deco, but on a global scale.
Right.
So I knew that I wanted to talk about more than just the celebrity world. So when I moved to Los Angeles and they gave me this job hosting The Insider, that was supposed to be a springboard for me. I didn't want to stay in the celebrity world, but I thought that was the promised land where I can then create my own production company, come up with my own TV show. Of course, before the digital disruption, that was just beginning. We had no idea what was going to happen to TV. And, it didn't work out that way. But what happened to me, and the biggest gift of being in Los Angeles and hosting that show, was being invited by Discovery Channel to go behind the scenes of Shark Week. As a kid, I always wanted to scuba dive, but I never had the patience or the time to dedicate to learn how to do it. And all of a sudden, I had an invitation to go to Tahiti and go shark diving with Eli Roth, the famous director and actor.
Horror movie director.
Horror movie. And Joubert from, Inglourious Bastards.
Yep.
Quentin Tarantino, to go even further back. Great guy, by the way. One of my, I love this guy like a brother. But I'd never met him before. And we were going to go shark diving in Tahiti. And I looked up, okay, where are we going in Tahiti? Big island of Tahiti. All right, mostly known for gray reef sharks, some black tips, maybe some lemon sharks. Not real aggressive man-eaters. I can handle this. Mm-hmm. I took a crash course in scuba diving. Thank you, Malibu divers, who, by the way, are suffering right now because of the fires that happened, earlier this year. So just a lot of love to Malibu divers, and we will get through this together. And you have a lot of divers. The diving community is really supporting them, and they will come back stronger than before. I have total faith in that. But thank you, Malibu divers, for teaching me. And I went to Tahiti, and my first dive ever after I got certified was Shark Week. And
talk about the deep end.
Well, first of all, the boat.
Never done it before. It's never I'm gonna do it for Shark Week because why not?
Exactly. So nothing like that for your virgin dive, right? And the great thing is, like, the dive boat gets to the White Reef, which is a very famous sharky reef off the big island of Tahiti, and they don't even need to chum the water. The minute the boat gets there, the sharks are already attuned to the sound of the engines or the motor, and the entire boat is surrounded by fins. Like, you get there and it's like shark soup, and it's something out of a out of a Popeye cartoon. You remember the fins just going. I'm like, there's no way I'm jumping in this water. It just goes beyond all logic and reason, And the Discovery crew jumps in with all their equipment, like nothing, with no fear whatsoever.
When you say jump in, we're not talking about in the cage.
No cage. They just
jump in
into the shark soup.
Like, literally could just come up to them if they
no fear, no hesitation, boom, in the water. And I'm like, wow. They just flew my ass first class, put me up at this fancy hotel. I'm hanging out with Eli Roth, and he's got no fear. He's like, here we go.
Can't be a wussy now.
Can't wuss out now. Too late. Yeah. And I go, and at first, you're surrounded by, the black tips and the gray reefs and some lemons here and there. And the lemons look gnarly because they have their teeth that go all over but they're not aggressive at all. They're just swimming like they're hanging with you. And it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then it's like Finding Nemo, because some of the most colorful and healthy reefs in the world are in French Polynesia. Why? Because they have very strict environmental policies there, right? And so their marine environment has been protected. Therefore, it thrives. And the water is crystal clear. You can see right down to the bottom. And we get down to the bottom of the reef, and it is just like Fantasia, Finding Nemo, Little Mermaid. Like, my mind is like, this is incredible. And it's like, I'm living my Jacques Cousteau fantasy right there. And as I'm in this zen, beautiful moment, I see this huge black shadow coming right towards us. And it's a 17-foot tiger shark. I'm like, I did not sign up for this. What the fuck? And at that point, you can't really do anything. You can't out-swim it. You can't overpower it. You just have to surrender to whatever is going to happen. Now, I'm hanging on. I still hadn't mastered buoyancy yet. So buoyancy is what keeps you down in the water. So you do that by manipulating the amount of air that you have in your, in your buoyancy control device in your BCD. And I didn't quite know what was happening. And I saw myself not being able to stabilize under the water. And I knew that I didn't want to move. It was just my instinct kicking in saying, do not move. Just be still, so that the shark doesn't see you as food.
Yeah, because they're attracted to movement.
They're attracted to movement, and they're attracted to things that flee them by nature. Genetically, they're programmed. If something is running away from me, I probably want to eat that, and so it's just a natural instinct that the shark has.
It's me at a buffet,
and then exactly. Well, and the shark, most often than not, we'll get to that in a second, but I knew to be perfectly still. Eli was not scared at all. He was completely like mind blown. I mean, it wasn't. We had no idea we were going to encounter this 17-foot behemoth, under the water, and it was 3 times my size. I'm not kidding. And once you settled down and you allowed the urine to flow through your wetsuit, and thank goodness I had dropped the kids off at the pool before I went on the dive, because that would have been a very messy situation. So once that happens and you just surrender to that moment, and there's a lot of power in that word. Surrender seems like a weak word, but it's not. It's actually a word of strength. When you surrender to the moment and you allow whatever is going to happen, there is power in that. You're going to say, I'm giving myself up to this moment and God's will be done. And this beautiful creature who I'd been taught to fear my entire life was so curious. I mean, she got up right on our grill, looked, oh, you're still here, motherfucker? Okay, I'm going to come back. And she would come back in a circle and come back. And this went on for like an eternity. And finally, my fear settled down. And then it was just awe and admiration and love. And I realized that this giant creature that I've been taught to fear my entire life did not want to eat me. Instead, she needed my voice to help protect her and the other sharks that are being slaughtered around the world at a rate of 100 million sharks a year.
A year?
A year, yeah. Due to the shark fin trade, bycatch, overfishing of our oceans.
Yeah.
So, and that's not sustainable. I mean, if we enjoy a healthy ocean, we can't have a healthy ocean without a healthy shark population. And that was the story that I told. So I didn't tell the Eli Roth horror Hollywood, Jaws story. I came back to LA, and that's the story that I told. I'm like, I met a shark, and the shark said, save me and save us. And I put that story on TV, and the conservation world took notice. And then all of a sudden I became someone who had a platform that could amplify these important messages. And everybody reached out to me. I mean, Five Gyres, Born Free Foundation, World Wildlife Fund, and I would just amplify these messages. And I realized, this is why I do what I do. It's not about fame and fortune. It's not about the travel show that I want. It's about using these gifts that were given to me for the greater good. And when I made that connection, my life changed. So when Channel 10 came to me and they said, come back, we want you to be the anchor, for the 5:30 and the 4:30 show. I said, yeah, but you have to let me do this.
Right.
And that was the gift. And so that shark changed my life. There you go.
That is probably the most interesting life-changing moment I've heard on this show yet, because it involves the ocean, it involves a horror director, it involves near-death experience.
Yeah, it could have had a very different ending.
Yeah, listen, for all you knew, Eli Roth was literally setting you up to film something for his next movie.
And so the funny thing was, I was preparing myself for the moment, and so on the 14-hour flight to Tahiti from Los Angeles, I had my laptop, and what am I watching? Jaws. And Eli comes up to me, he's like, why are you watching Jaws? Like, I just want to be prepared. And you're watching Jaws?
No.
That's who I am. I like to torture myself. But yeah, that was the movie that I saw on the flight from LA to Tahiti. It was Jaws. Yeah.
Jaws. And then you probably saw what? Jaws 2, Jaws 3, because it was 14 hours.
No, so I just saw Jaws. Oh, it was on a loop, But I realized what a con job Spielberg cops up to this. He owns up to this. Like, I did a horrible thing for sharks.
It really does. It really come back to Jaws.
I remember being afraid to sit on the toilet after I saw that movie. It's like, forget the pool, forget the ocean. It's like, oh my God. I don't know if it was that or Saturday Night Live, with the land shark and
combo.
Combo both,
land shark.
But water freaked me for a long time. I was 7 years old when I saw that movie came out, and I saw it in the theater with my dad. And
but also because we're here in Miami, the ocean is a reality for us, right? Like,
and
if you
it's
see that
always
movie
been a part of my life,
you're never going to run into the water or whatever. But yeah,
the ocean's always been a part of my life. We're one of those families, obviously being Cubano, my parents, every free chance that we got as a family, we would go to the beach, whether it was Miami Beach or Key Biscayne or Riviera Beach and West Palm Beach, because that's where the family went in the summer. And then later on, Cocoa Beach and, the ocean. And then we had a boat. And so the ocean has always been part of my existence. Yeah. And it's no accident. I guess that's why I've become this voice here in South Florida to stand up and protect it. Because I remember what South Florida looked like back in the 70s. I remember the crystal clear waters of Biscayne Bay. They're not mythical. They really happened. You could see clear down to the bottom.
like Grand Cayman type clarity?
I mean, not like that, but I mean, Biscayne Bay it's a bay, right? It's an urban setting, but it was a lot clearer and a lot cleaner than it is today. There was living seagrass. We've lost over 95% of the seagrass in the northern basin of the bay due to all that pollution that's coming into the watershed. I mean, that's not sustainable. And we're going to lose our seagrass and transition into an algae system that will not support life as we know it. It will not support dolphins. It will not support fisheries. It will not support turtles. It will not support sharks.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you a question, because I mean, you just brought up something that I hadn't even thought about. You know, being here in Miami, South Florida, the ocean, not even water, right? The ocean is such a big part of our lives. Whether you're on a boat, bro, or, you know, you're going to the beach on the weekend, or you only go once, whatever. It's such a part of just the environment, no pun intended, that we have here. Why do you think, and this is pure speculation, why do you think it's so hard for some people to kind of wrap their heads around this is actually happening and we need to protect it? Because I'm thinking of it from a perspective of like, okay, let's say you're not a quote unquote tree hugger, right? Fair enough. But you brought up a point, which is how goes the ocean, there goes tourism, there goes everything. So it has this bigger impact on the economy. I mean, just unscientifically, you know, what have you found maybe in your time covering this?
It's consciousness. It's basically, I'm not excusing it in this day and age of social media and information being at your fingertips, and education and facts being out there. It's people who just are unconscious and just see it as a location to party, you know, go on a boat, do crazy things, get that Instagram, you know, influencer life, build your own rep, and not realizing that it's a resource. It's a resource that feeds us in so many ways. It's not just the fish that comes from the ocean, but every 3 breaths that we take comes from oxygen produced by the ocean. So if we like to breathe, you better wake the F up and realize what's happening, you know?
We've gotten used to breathing. So
I'm like pro breathing, yes. You better pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah, I'm pro breathing. So that's a good one. Yeah.
I knew we could hang.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're pro breathing, then you're my brother.
I'm your kind of people. Yeah, exactly. No, but and you know, and I will say this, like a lot of people I think may look and be like, oh, well, you know, that's his job. You know, he does that on air and this and that. And it's like, let
me break this down now. I've been waiting for this question.
I'm like,
understand that WPLG Local 10 pays me to anchor the newscast.
Right. Not this. And I'm going to, before you even go down that route, I'm going to say, this gentleman also is putting his money where his airwaves are, or however you want to spin that phrase, right? Because
no one's ever said that to me, but thank you.
Because you, again, and just got to jump on your socials. You are out there doing trash cleanups. You are out there, you know, one of my favorites is kind of when you see somebody posting that they think they're being cute. You're like, you repost and be like, let's find this motherfucker. Like, I mean, but you know, you are putting your money where your airwaves are. I like that. I'm coining it. That is not the job description. You know what I mean? Like, to your point, the job description is they're paying you to show up and anchor and maybe, you know, do a segment here and the news and this and that. But you are a real deal. Like,
so I'm in the studio, like I'm contracted to be in the studio from 2:30 on a good day till 11:30 at night, because that's the time where our first newscast is at 3, the first cast, and our last newscast is at 11. And so if breaking news happens or whatever, I need to be in the studio. Obviously, I get a break for dinner.
How many hours now of newscasts on 10? It's a lot. I mean, you start at 3, right?
Yes, wait, so 3 hours, and then about 3.5 hours, and plus the morning show. I can't do the math. That's why I do TV, because I can't do math, but it's a lot.
But he's got the numbers, the environmental numbers he's got, all right? That he's got. Yeah.
That I have. But I think it's about 8 hours of local news programming a day. I don't do all of that, obviously. I anchor 4 newscasts a day, the 3:30, the 4:30, the 5:30, and the 10, which is not on Local 10 yet. Right now, we just simulcast. We produce a newscast for WSFL, right? But things are happening at Local 10. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So
I didn't know if I could bring that up or not.
You can bring that up. Okay, no, we can. There's not much I can say, but we can actually talk about that. Our divorce from ABC. It's been a very messy divorce. I'm kidding. So
the mouse is not a good. It's not good at alimony.
Well, us and the mouse, we're not on good terms right now. But you know, over time we'll be fine. But so my main responsibility is to show up and anchor the newscast. Don't Trash Our Treasure is produced in the mornings before I get to work or on the weekends. I write after the 11 o'clock newscasts on Tuesday. Sometimes I leave the station at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning if it's a hard piece to write. They edit first thing Wednesday morning. So Wednesday by about noon, 1 o'clock, I show up at PLG before to go over it with the editor and see if we can fine tune it. Right. I tend to be very long winded sometimes, so sometimes I have to chop. It's very hard to condense these environmental stories.
You're not long winded. You're passionate.
Yeah, I have a lot to say.
Very different.
So it's a process, and it's a lot of my time, my personal time. But you asked before why it's resonating and why it seems like it's been on the air for longer than 4 years, and why there is an appetite for this. It's because it comes from a very authentic place, because I care. I mean, it boils down to that. It comes from me caring. I care. This is my home. This is my backyard. I care about what happens to it. And it's not just South Florida, but I care about the entire planet. And we're all connected. One day, hopefully, we'll realize that what happens over there affects me here. We're not living in a silo. We're not living in isolation. We're connected to everything, even our natural world. Our natural world and humanity is intrinsically connected. And if we think that it doesn't matter when a species disappears, you better think again. It's a very complicated eco-web. When one strand disappears, the entire web is compromised.
Do you think now that, when one species disappears, we're having this conversation literally the day after the announcement of like the cloning of the dire wolf or what have you. Do you think that things like that are going to hurt eco causes?
Well, let's be clear about what happened with the dire wolf. That is a commercial enterprise.
Fair enough.
That wasn't done for
the greater
science.
good. Yeah.
The dire wolf became famous because of Game of Thrones. Let's be very clear.
Yeah.
And they were able to do it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. You want to play God? Now they want to. They're talking about cloning a woolly mammoth. Why do you want to bring the woolly mammoth back?
Because no one learned from Jurassic Park. That's why. That's why we are courting dystopian sci-fi.
I can see me like flying to eat with Eli Roth to some crazy location, watching Jurassic Park on a loop now. No, we shouldn't do that. Actually, Ron Magill, who I love like a brother, texted
we got to get him on the show.
You should get Ron. He's a good time.
You want to talk about icon of South Florida?
Yes, and Ron can talk about anything. And he's fun and he's funny and witty and another man who cares a lot about our world. Has got a big heart. I can't say enough about Ron Magill. But he texted me after, and it wasn't like I was pro direwolf. It was something that was, I don't write sometimes I rewrite my newscasts if I don't like the way things are written, if I have time and I'm not, in the weeds with Don't Trash Our Treasure. But I read the script. I think I read it cold that day because it was a Tuesday, and Tuesday my mind is on on writing my stuff, which I don't normally do. I usually check my scripts to make sure that they're accurate and whatnot and grammatically correct.
We all have our days.
Yeah. But anyway, the direwolf story surprised me, and we read the story, and immediately we got a text from Ron Magill saying, "This is wrong. You shouldn't play God." And I said that but he's one to actually, clap back when there's something on the air that he doesn't want us to promote. And we shouldn't play God. This is nature saying, okay, the dire wolf had its time, and nature is perfect. Nature is always perfect. So if a species like the dire wolf, naturally, not because it was killed by humans and it was killed by pollution or by human pressure on the natural environment, if that species disappears, it's because there's a reason for that. We don't know what the consequences of this is going to be. We don't know what the genetics of the dire wolf were back in the day. Maybe they were 10 times as aggressive as regular wolves today, and there's a reason why they went away, because they would just devour everything. So I don't know who's going to take care of those puppies. And they're cute now, but they're going to grow up one day.
Like children. Like children. You don't always know what you're going to get.
Right.
No, my concern is more along the lines of people thinking like, well, who cares if the rhino dies off?
No, we have to care.
But I'm saying, who cares?
Yeah.
Look, we have the technology. We'll just clone it later.
Yeah.
That's my big concern, is that people may just take this mentality of like, it doesn't matter anymore. And that, in addition to everything you just said about like playing God and you don't know what the ramifications are.
Yeah.
I have such a just inherent problem with this approach. And I know you said it's commercial. Yes, but genie's out of the bottle. Mm-hmm. Right? It exists. And that's my biggest concern, is that people are going to turn to that and be like, well, who cares if X goes extinct? We can just bring it back. And that's
but
not the
are you
point.
going to be able to bring it back at scale? So, like for example, the elephant, they're the gardeners of the African savanna. Without them, the entire ecosystem will crash. We need them to germinate, to pollen, to get rid of forests. Sometimes when they're overgrown, they serve a purpose. The rhinos serve as a purpose. They're nature's fertilizer. They're nature's gardeners. They serve a purpose. So it does matter, because when you take an animal as significant, or a species as significant as an elephant or a rhino, out of the mix, then you're compromising the health of the entire ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. Everything it's the circle of life.
Everything
impacts on something else.
God bless Elton John.
Yeah, exactly.
Who finally made up with Madonna. I'm very happy that they buried the hatchet. So if
anything happened good in 2025,
Madonna can make peace, then there's hope for the rest of us. We can achieve world peace. Let that be the beacon of light and truth.
I think you and I need to figure out how to nominate that for a Nobel Prize. That's the peace prize right there.
The state of the world right now, they may just win. Okay,
listen, I'll take my wins where I can get them. All right, Elton and Madonna.
We need to look for shining examples of peace right now. And if it's Elton and Madonna,
who knew it was going to be that
flowers,
combo?
Baby, all the flowers.
Who knew it was going to be them?
I'm waiting for the collab, man. I'm waiting for that song to come, the beats to drop on that.
You know what? I'm going to hold off on optimistically, because it can either be an Elton Dua Lipa or an Elton and Britney. One was good, one was not.
I wasn't going to go there, but since you brought it up, I'm hoping it's more the Dua Lipa and less Britney.
Yeah.
Poor Britney. I mean, she needs more love. Anyway,
she has our love. So that's
eternally. Yeah,
eternally, absolutely. Yeah. You brought up, and again, I didn't know if I could broach it, so I was kind of skirting around it.
Let's talk about it. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. Since we're talking about elephants.
And it's not about me for once. So WPLG was the AB, or it still is at the time of this recording, the ABC affiliate here in South Florida. Till August 1st.
Yep.
And it was recently announced that they are separating from PLG as the affiliate. They're actually moving
after
over.
60 years. It's like the end of a 60-year marriage. Yeah,
it is crazy.
But it's what's happening. If you look at what's happening right now on the TV landscape, are people really slaves to a network schedule anymore?
At all.
And then you have all these platforms. You're like, who? I mean, I know you watched some White Lotus, didn't you?
I am not a White Lotus person.
You're not a White Lotus person? I need to leave.
Not. My boyfriend is. My boyfriend is. I am not.
You're not?
I like the first season.
They're going to take away your gay card, dude.
Listen, sometimes they're just like, listen, it's up for review. And so you never know. But no, I like the first season, but I kind of felt like I'm also that person who, if something worked, I don't necessarily need it to keep
but the story changes every season, so it's not. Maybe it's the same formula.
It's an anthology. Yeah. I think what turned me off is that in the second season, because they brought back Jennifer Coolidge, in my mind I was like, oh, they're trying to just do like a season 2.
Right.
If they had wiped the slate clean, maybe I would have
brand new characters. Yeah.
If season 3 would have been season 2, maybe I
will send notes to Mike White, and I'm sure he'll take them in and create something fresh and new for season 4.
I'll send you a text and just bullet points.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I can just,
Okay, cool. We'll just add him to the text thread.
Maybe I can have him on the show. You can tell him directly.
You know what? Absolutely. And we will meet at whatever the White Lotus is here in South
Florida.
What a
great idea. Yeah. The next resort.
Yeah, exactly.
The next location. Wouldn't that be cool? So the people that are, and I'm older than you, that are my age and the generations that preceded me, that really ushered in the age of television, are disappearing. It's just life. The circle of life, and so
we're so poetic. This episode,
everything circles back. And so the younger generation, the kids, the millennials, the Gen Zers, they don't consume content the way that we grew up consuming content, and their attention span is smaller and smaller and smaller, and so the phone has become the new TV, or your gadget has become the new TV, or your flat screen has become the new TV, your desktop, your desktop, and so the networks are losing their relevance unless you have a big event like the NBA playoffs, which we will miss, or
although the award
Stanley Cup finals, even the award show, like ABC airs the Oscars, right? But you can also watch the Oscars on Hulu and another platform. So there's no exclusivity. So the audience, let's say you gained an audience of 200 million people that watch which those numbers don't exist anymore. But let's say 200 million people watch the Oscars. There's nothing to say that those same viewers, let's say out of those 200 million, 500,000 watch the Oscars live here in South Florida. There's nothing to say that those viewers watched it on Channel 10 or that stayed up to watch the newscast afterwards. Right. Network shows like that, big events like that, used to have more relevance because they led into the newscast. And so the local station would gain some percentage of the advertising that was made off televising the Oscars. But the bigger gain was always the audience that these big events brought into the newscast, because the local newscast, all that revenue stays with the local station.
Yeah, it was the old thinking, the channel's already on. And so I just leave it on. And
exactly. Yeah. You know, those days are done. And so the math, the numbers, it wasn't mathing, you know.
Right.
If it was mathing for us, I think we would have kept that relationship going, but it wasn't mathing, not in this day and age. And listen, Warren Buffett and Burt Medina had our ship, you know. Burt Medina is our general manager, and at the top of the food chain is Warren Buffett. The only multi-billionaire who didn't lose any money during this track. We said we weren't going to go into the territory, but Warren Buffett is one of the few that actually came out unscathed. Yeah. Yes. So if Warren Buffett says, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. You know,
it's okay.
I think he knows a thing or two about business. I feel good.
That's fair. Yeah. That's a fair assessment. Yeah. So I mean, you know, it's obviously, when I heard the news, I was kind of like, wait, what? Because I'm 45.
Yeah.
I've always known, shush. I've only ever known PLG as the ABC affiliate.
Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, it was just such a like, my
can I ask you a question?
Was like, but to your point, I have Hulu. That's where I watch the ABC shows to begin with, right? So I'm not even, I don't have.
But what shows do you watch on ABC now, presently?
Okay, so ABC shows, I don't watch them on ABC because I don't watch.
Okay, but what do you watch?
I'm watching your Abbott Elementary, Will Trent, High Potential, The Connors. I'm going through the entire freaking primetime lineup.
I'm
Dancing with the Stars.
Impressed. Impressed.
Yeah.
Because I don't watch, I mean, it's not my I don't watch any of that.
Well, that's because you're in the newsroom for like 8 hours a day. When are
true.
you have time?
That's true. I watch Planet Earth with David Attenborough. No, but that's great.
But to your point,
I'm not
watching it on PLG.
Right, you're watching it on Hulu. There you go. So here's the thing. So people like our product because we still have an audience, despite the fact that the viewers are so splintered and can watch on various different platforms. Or you can even buy the series if you want on iTunes. Yeah. You know, you can buy Abbott Elementary and not have to deal with commercials and all that good stuff, and binge. But we still have an audience, loyal Local 10 viewers. Before it was Local 10, it was Eyewitness News. They've carried over. Yeah.
God, you just unlocked the memory. Wow. Dwight and Ann. All right.
Yeah, exactly. And I worked with them. So that is my DNA. I came from the original Eyewitness News family. You know, my first job in television, in English language television in South Florida, was as a reporter and then weekend anchor at WPLG. So when I came back, it was a full circle moment for me. So I worked under the tutelage of Ann Bishop and Dwight Lauderdale. A different time altogether. We were the leaders in this market. No one could touch us. It was the golden age of television, and I'm so happy I got to experience that. And we have people that still believe that Local 10 is the news leader in this town, thank goodness, and we have a strong and loyal audience. And the belief is that it doesn't matter if we have ABC programming or not, our viewers are going to watch us to find out what's happening in their backyard. And we are the trusted news source here in South Florida. And that's not going to change. As a matter of fact, that's only going to get bigger. We're adding more newscasts to our lineup. I don't exactly know what the lineup is yet. That hasn't been shared with us. More intelligent and creative people that have a higher pay grade than me are figuring that out right now. And they haven't shared it with the rest. When they're ready to make the big announcement, they will. But I can tell you there's a lot of excitement in our newsroom because we get an opportunity to create something new. And whenever that happens, I think that really drives the quality of the content, because you have to live up to the goals that you've set yourself up for. And right now, that's what I see happening. I see people just really pumped up and excited about the future, which is great because, again, the game is changing. And if you're one of the pioneers that are going to break the rules and shake things up and do things. Look what Channel 7 did. I mean, I can talk about them because I used to work there too. Right. And I remember back in 1983 or 84, whatever year it was, I think it was 84, when Channel 7 broke up with NBC.
I remember.
And it was a big, like, oh my God, Channel 7 is not going to be NBC anymore. Yeah. And that Channel 6, which was the independent, is going to become NBC.
Yeah, I remember.
And what's going to happen to Channel 7 was independent for like 2 years before Fox was even born. And remember, Fox came in like a trickle. Fox was like, it was like the Tracy Ullman show.
Like Sunday nights for an hour.
Exactly. Matt TV and Married with Children. That's all it was. And then later on, that network grew and grew and grew and grew. And Fox became, the Channel 7, or Channel 7 became the Fox affiliate here in South Florida and became a Fox station. So the possibilities are endless. And the station in Jacksonville, I forgot, I think they were NBC also, recently broke up with their network affiliate and are doing extremely well as just an independent, amplifying their news programming and creating more local programming. So we'll see what happens. But we're all very excited. This is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like, interesting things are coming as it's all we can say at this point, right? Because we don't really even know the full extent of it. But I will say, to touch on what you were talking about with regard to, being a trusted news source and everything, I actually tell this story to so many people, and I'm trying to remember if I have told you this story. We had already had you on because this happened. What I'm about to talk about happened in 2020. Mm-hmm. You had been on the show. We had met. You were absolutely fantastic. And, me dystopian, and we were like, oh, okay, cool. Like Louis, whatever. And then I watched you, specifically you and your coverage during the BLM marches. Mm-hmm. And I very, very distinctly remember you being on the air as the looting began at the CVS on Biscayne Boulevard. Mm-hmm. Okay. And again, there was a lot going on and there was some off cameras. I believe it was like potentially a police officer had said something or somebody, I don't know who it was. And I distinctly remember you on air, just it was like a switch in your head of just like this, I am a journalist and I have integrity, turning around and being like, no, sir, that's not true. That was not a protester. I've been with this protest for I don't know how many blocks. Mm-hmm. And this person I saw when they joined and they came in and da-da-da. Like you were on point. And I always tell people that for me specifically, that moment served multiple purposes for me. Number one, it solidified the fact that I like you because it told me who you were in that moment. But you also became, for me, and I know this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but go with it. Up until that point, I knew you as Louis Aguirre, Deco Drive, entertainment guy. And yes, you were by that point an anchor and a reporter. But at that point, to me, you were a journalist. And that moment, for me, solidified you moving forward as, no. Louis Aguirre is a journalist. And I will fight anybody who tells me otherwise.
I remember that moment vividly because it was a group of agitators that were not from Miami. And the person that came up to me was someone that was trying to amplify the fact that the BLM protesters were violent thugs.
Right.
And he said, see. And I said, no, you see. They're not from Miami and you're not from Miami. So shut the F up and let me do my job.
Yeah, and this was live.
Basically, it was live. And I remember taking command of that moment and just standing up for my backyard and standing up for this town. I said, don't come into my backyard and tell lies and stir up shit that isn't true. And I'm going to shut you down. And that was just pure instinct that went in, and love and pride for being a Miami boy. Yeah. Like, I know Miami people. These aren't Miami people. Sell that shit elsewhere. It's not going to fly here. And, there's a moment where, as a journalist, you're going to be tested. You talk about towing the line. You always have to stand up for truth.
Right.
Always have to stand up for truth. And you have to remain objective always, but never shy away from telling the truth. Ever. Facts matter. In this day and age, facts matter. Truth matters. Science matters.
Yep.
And so you have to push back if you have the facts and the knowledge and the integrity and the commitment, then you push back. You have to have the confidence in the facts that you own. And if you own those facts, push back. That is our job as journalists. Simple. That's it.
Well, again, I like I told you, my the back of my mind was always like, if he's ever on the show again, I have to tell him to his face, because it was, for me, I just felt so proud of you at that moment for just representing everything that was good about the city in that moment.
Yeah.
And again, I was watching it happen live. So I was like, fuck yeah, go on, Louis. Like, you know, and so I just want to, on behalf of no one else but myself, I just want to say thank you for that moment, because it was so you. Yeah, but you know what, Louis, it's very easy for you to be like, I was just doing my job, but you know what, that doesn't always translate for everybody, and that's different for other people. And some people may have at that moment just, you know, shied away, or maybe even told the cameraman, you know, hey, just get a view of what's going on. You don't know how you're going to react in that moment until it happens, right? Most people can say, oh, this is what I would do and this is what I would do, but you were found in that moment, and you did the right thing. So I mean, that's commendable.
It was.
I'm giving you your flowers, sir, because you fucking deserve it.
I accept the flowers, but it goes back to, again, your authentic voice. We're talking about, you know, the power of surrendering. Like when a moment happens, you give yourself to that moment and you let yourself be your authentic self. And so I think whenever truth and authenticity leads, then I think the moment, you know, that resonates with other people who are watching it happen. Yes, I could have easily said, okay, sir, thank you very much, and we're just going to talk about this over here. I chose in that moment. It was completely instinctual. It wasn't, you know, pre-planned or I didn't know I was going to do it. It just happened, you know. But again, when you let your authenticity lead the way, you can't go wrong. You know, when you're confident that you are speaking your truth, you cannot go wrong.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of authenticity, as we round the bend on this interview, you are authentically a dog lover.
Yeah. Really? Is it the 10,000 dog posts on my Instagram?
I was going to say, y'all need to follow him if for no other reason, like just the dog posts alone. They are beautiful.
You know,
no. They're beautiful. Post away by all means. And you work with the Humane Society as well.
It's a it's almost my second longest relationship. I've been with them obviously I went away to Los Angeles for a while, but I think this is going to be my 15th or 16th Brunch for the Animals. And I remember the first one because I did it just because I could bring my dog to brunch. And that was the coolest thing in the world. And I love it. And other people were going to be able to bring their dogs. And it was at the Lowe's. And the Lowe's had just opened. It was maybe 5 years old. And what a bougie place to have brunch, you know, with your dog. And I said, lunch. Yeah. And at that time I was anchoring Deco, and it was that was part of the job description, was to be out in the community, especially, you know, social events like this, and before social media. So Ocean Drive was the OG IG back in the day. So if you were in Ocean Drive,
you're unlocking so many memories right now, man.
It wasn't that long ago.
I did an internship at Ocean Drive.
We lived by every month when Ocean Drive came. It was like the Bible. Like, did I get it? Did I? Who was where and who did what? And who was in town?
That you were in most of those issues during your time at Deco.
I got some pages in Ocean Drive. I'm not gonna lie. But you looked for, like, I remember the first interview when I was applying for Deco, when I was brought in for Deco, they said part of the job is being out there and making sure that you get photographed, that you're seeing at these. And so we looked for those opportunities. We didn't court them, but when they came our way, we realized, okay, this is a really good platform for me. I took it for purely selfish reasons, and I'm putting this out there for a reason. And I went with my dog, and I thought I was going to have the best time. And then they gave me the script, and I realized that we have 33,000 on any given year, 33,000 homeless dogs and cats in Miami-Dade County. And at that time, our kill rate was a lot higher than it is today. And I realized, oh my God, we have a homeless pet population problem here in South Florida. And people need to know this. And at that time, the dog that I had two. I had Bo and Jagger, and they were both Dalmatians. Now, Bo, I got in another relationship in a lifetime in Los Angeles and brought her back to Miami. And Jagger, I got someone had cued me into the fact that this breeder had these litter of Dalmatians, and one Dalmatian, which was bred to be a show dog, the pigment in the nose didn't fill in, so he had a pink nose. It was a beautiful dog. It was a chocolate Dalmatian. It was liver spotted, and he had beautiful markings. It was actually perfect dog, save for the nose that didn't fill in. He had a pink
couldn't
nose.
Be a show dog because
he couldn't be a show dog, and they needed to get rid of. They needed to get rid of him. That was what I was like. We need to get rid of this dog. Do you know who wants? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take the dog. So it was my first unofficial rescue, but it wasn't really a rescue because I still had to pay the breeder for it. But I didn't know anything about the rescue community, and it was then that I was introduced to this incredible community of animal lovers people who stood up for animal rights, the rescue community who's so passionate and they work so hard. And I realized, okay, I'm going to help these people. And I came back to that brunch because of that. It wasn't just a chance to be bougie with my dog and, have the brunch is always the first Saturday after Basel. And so they had a Santa. You would take your Christmas card was like there, ready for you. You would take your dogs and pose with Santa, and that would be your Christmas card. And then it became about the mission. And it was something that I care. Even when I left Miami and I went to Los Angeles, I hooked up with Best Friends, which is an incredible society. I mean, their animal sanctuary in Kanab, Utah is 80,000 acres, and they take every animal known to mankind that could be considered a companion animal, from horses to potbelly pigs to macaws and cockatoos and dogs and cats.
Wonderful place.
It's almost like you're in the Garden of Eden. It is, and it's majestic. You're miles away from the Grand Canyon. You're sandwiched between the Grand Canyon and Zion National Park, which if you haven't been to Zion, is like the most incredible place on the planet. It's just spectacular. But yeah, so it's always been part of my DNA, and then I'm wired that way. I care about animals. I care about what happens to the most unwanted of our population. And again, it's about using your voice and your platform to help and to be of service. And so I'm happy that they keep asking me back. There must be something wrong with them, but they keep asking me back.
You're available.
I'm available.
You're available.
Yeah, and so it's my 16th year emceeing the Brunch of the Animals, and it's such a great time. Again, if nothing more, if you're watching this or listening to this, and this idea of bringing your dog to brunch with other dogs appeals to you, come check it out. You will drink the tea, and you will become part of this beautiful animal advocate army that we have.
Make sure your dog gets along with other dogs.
Yeah, that's true. Please,
yeah.
I think responsible dog owners know.
Yeah.
There's never been in the 16 years I've been doing this. There's never been an incident. There's been a lot of pees and poops and accidents, but never been
about the owners.
Yeah. That's a different story.
That's bottomless mimosa.
Yeah, that's a different story. It's a different story. It is a good time. Yeah, and it's a great cause. We raise a lot of money. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Louis. I cannot say enough fantastic things about you.
Go on.
So I will. So we'll sit back. No, honestly, like you're one of the people that I've come to really care about, like through this whole podcast journey. It's like every time I see you out there doing something, I know you, right? Like, we've interacted, and I feel a certain like connection, and like that's our boy. That's our podcast boy. And I just love to celebrate you, and I'm just so glad that we get to keep doing it, and that you keep giving us reasons to do it with all of your, just tireless efforts.
I just appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation, and again, to amplify the fact that we need to wake up and realize what's happening and care more and do more, because all of us can do something, whether it be reducing our consumption of single-use plastics, or going out there and joining a cleanup, or voting the right way, and paying attention to what's happening policy-wise.
Local policies.
People don't pay attention to local elections, and they matter. Yes, they do.
They really do. That's where the real stuff happens, guys. I mean, we said it on the show before, but yeah. Louis, thank you again.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna pitch this. I'm gonna put this out there.
Okay.
With PLG changing some of their programming starting August 1st. I think that the idea of you having a travel show should resurface. I think.
Oh, that's we're going to pitch it pedal. Let me tell you. I'm
going to do
TV version.
Well, I'm going to do that off camera, because I don't want to see. I don't want to be self-serving on camera. On camera, I'm magnanimous.
But if I travel, then I can't. Then I take my eyeballs off what's happening here. So I don't know if that's good.
But you can produce it.
I can't. Well, we'll see.
You can produce it. I'm just saying I don't think it should die.
Maybe we can call in Mike White, and we could be like all White Lotus-y, save the planet.
Exactly.
And make this.
Exactly. Like where White Lotuses actually exist.
Yes.
And why we need to save those environments.
Well, they're all, ecotourism is booming right now all over the world. Costa Rica, even Miami is becoming more of an ecotourism destination. Yeah. We're changing our programming here. We're trying to be known as more than just a party town. There's really important stuff happening here in South Florida. Come see us, investigate, get dirty, get involved, get messy with us.
And anybody who wants to get involved, actually, I will say, just follow Louis on Instagram, because you're always posting about like, hey, there's this beach cleanup, there's this effort. So it's an easy, guys, you don't even have to seek out the damn information. You can follow him, catch all his dog pics,
and you get really good dog content.
Yeah, really good dog content, and find out about all the things you can do to help out the community. So again, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
swinging by.
I appreciate it. Always fun.